Episode 15, this week's episode, the Gallileo 7. Gallileo 7. This is the episode that Mr. Sulu wishes had happened several episodes before this because they used a shuttlecraft. He could have used that shuttlecraft when he was freezing on that planet, but they didn't send him one. But this episode, they were supposed to make a medical run to a planet. There was a high commissioner on board to make sure they made the medical run. No high commissioner before or since had ever been seen. Didn't really say what a high commissioner did, but he apparently had authority of an undisclosed nature. Well, Captain Kirk said, oh yeah, well I'm going to send a shuttlecraft out to check on this quasar, because I like to check quasars. And since this shuttlecraft will lose complete control in a quasar, we'll have to search for them in just a minute. So they sent this shuttlecraft out. It was overmatched by the quasar. They had no instrumentation. The Enterprise had no instrumentation. Mr. Spock leading the shuttlecraft was like, well, that's terrible. And they all agreed. And they crash landed on a planet. And you had a yeoman there for some reason. You had never before seen officers. Bowman was there. He didn't like Spock. He gave the vibe that he was not a fan of Mr. Spock. Mr. Gaetano was there. He really didn't like Mr. Spock. They were argumentative. Anytime Spock said something, they'd question him. They'd argue. Mr. Spock just trying to lead this mission to check out the quasar, and they're all over his case. McCoy was somewhat on his case. Mr. Scott, he was just there trying to fix the ship. Didn't seem to care one way or the other on anything, but he's there trying to fix the ship. Well, after Captain Kirk and the High Commissioner and the rest of the bridge officers have a coffee break, they start sending repair crews try to fix the ship enough that they can search for the lost shuttlecraft. With the High Commissioner saying, okay, but the second you're forced to leave, I'm taking command, we're getting out of here. Gotta make that medical run. Kirk says, well, yeah, well, I know that. And he just drank his coffee. Then on the planet, they ran into these giant creatures that had giant spears that looked to be 35 feet long. They killed one of the unknown officers. Straight away just gutted him with the spear. Well, Mr. Spock, he's trying to scare the creatures away. Bowman and Gaetano, they don't like that. They want to kill the creatures. Spock's like, well, you guys are barbarians. And they're like, we don't like logic, so we don't like you. And Spock's like, yeah, well, good thing I'm in command then, isn't it? And he ordered Gaetano to stand guard away from the shuttle while they tried to repair the shuttle. Spear hits him in the hand. He drops his phaser. And then, rather than run towards the ship, he tries to scale a mountain. He could not scale a mountain with a broken hand, but he tried. And then the creature just killed him and carried him off. And Spock's like, I got this curiosity where I want to see where they put his body. Made no logical sense, but that's what he wanted to do. Handed his phaser over to McCoy. Went searching for the body so he could carry it back, where he planned on leaving the body behind. It made absolutely no sense. Mr. Scott came up with a solution to get the shuttlecraft in orbit so they could try to get to the Enterprise. Kirk's got scouting parties out because they fixed the transporters. They ran into the alien creatures that were throwing spears. But then he had to leave, so he's like, space normal speed, the slowest possible speed that will ever be used on any starship in the history of Star Trek. Mr. Sulu's like, are you sure? And he's like, sure, I'm sure. Space normal speed. But then, once the shuttlecraft gets airborne, Mr. Spock just dumps the fuel and ignites it. And they're all like, that wasn't logical. And finally, Mr. Scott's like, I get it, it's a flare in case they spot us, because we're going to die anyway, because this ship's going to crash into the atmosphere and burn up. Spock's like, yeah, but no one will see it. And Kirk's like, Not so fast. I see it because I was at space normal speed. We weren't going to make that medical run because we were going as slow as the ship could possibly go. Even though we were ordered to make the medical run by the High Commissioner, who apparently had authority, but not so much because I didn't listen to it. It wasn't the greatest day of people having command to be listened to by their subordinates. Horrible episode for that. But obviously, 5 of the members got back to the Enterprise safe and sound. Kirk was happy with that. He was all kinds of happy. Poor Kitano's family probably was less thrilled. Bowman must have asked for a transfer because we never saw Bowman again. He was just gone. The first guy that got killed, his family probably wasn't all that thrilled, but Kirk was fine. He was all like, I got my Spock and my Scotty. Bones is here, we're fine. And then they just do the comical, come on, Spock, admit you have emotions ending. And he did not. He did not admit it. Some interesting notes. Lots of characters that we never saw before in this episode. Brand new yeoman on the bridge with no lines, but she delivered coffee. Yeoman on the shuttlecraft, we never saw her again. Kitano, obviously, we never saw again. Bowman, we never saw again. Lots of questioning of orders in this episode with no repercussions. They just argued everything, every point, like it was like a joint mission where they were all in charge. They were not. Spock clearly had command. They made that very clear. He was in command. But yet they questioned every little thing he told them. Kind of unusual for Star Trek to see that much like debating going on between subordinates and commanders. But it happened. All the regulars were there. Scotty was there. Bones was there. You had Spock, Kirk, of course. Uhura was there. She had a fairly decent role. She took over the science department for a brief time while Spock was on the mission, so she could report to Kirk what the statuses were. Kirk even checked Spock's science station when they first lost contact with the shuttle. Everyone was using Spock's station. Probably upset him a little bit, but he wouldn't show it. Other than that, that's pretty much the episode. Kind of a bizarre one. Oh, until next time, that's pretty much it.